I definitely wanted to be able to blend in with the girls and just be a normal girl.
Britney Spears has found herself at the heart of a battle for her own freedom.
I would describe Britney Spears as a prisoner.
Free Britney Spears now from her conservatorship! Free Britney!
It's been, more than a decade at this point that she's been in a conservatorship, and she thinks, and her attorney thinks, that it's time for the court to review it, and the court will take a look at that.
I think what just feels kind of safe to you and like how you feel personally. Some things are like probably, people have boundaries and where they want to take it and where they want to go with it. And I think, it's just about respecting those boundaries. And I think by 30 years old, you kind of have to know who you are.
The system is broken because there is no place to go to complain. There is no place to vent. There's no place to go to say my constitutional rights were violated.
She has shown that she is able to provide for her most basic needs and her day-to-day life. She does not need these stringent controls over her.
I think you take your experiences that you go through and definitely put it into your work. So I'm gonna have a lot of I hate men songs and then a lot of I love men songs. So it kind of goes both ways.
Well, I don't think it's the beginning of the end, but I certainly think it's the end of Jamie Spears.
Britney Spears has all the money, she has all the fame, but she has none of the freedom.
Britney Spears is like the girl who grew up in the beauty pageants and was wearing the full makeup and the big hair by the age of 4. Britney's mom is a very driven stage mom who was taking Britney around to auditions basically from the age of 5 or 6.
Honestly, the way my mom has influenced me is just by her being such a beautiful mom. She's been an inspiration, for me to go out and do what I do. But if anything, she's just supported me, in everything that I've done. And, what more can you ask for from a mom, So that's basically what she's done with me as far as my career goes.
From about the age of 3, Britney Spears' mother noticed that there was something special about her daughter. And Britney was actually jumping up and down on a trampoline, singing, of all things, Sinead O'Connor songs. And I think all parents think that their kid has a little something extra special, thinks that their kid's talented.
Well, Britney Spears was born in a small town in Mississippi and raised in an even smaller town of Kentwood, Louisiana, population 2,600. Britney's entire childhood was kind of dominated by a very small town mentality where everybody knew everybody else, nobody had an awful lot of money, and it was kind of a very disenfranchised way to grow up.
Britney was singing in the church choir. She was participating in talent contests around their town in Louisiana where they lived. And one day at school, when Britney was about 9 or 10, one of her friends ran up to her and had an advertisement. The Mickey Mouse Club were coming to Atlanta, Georgia, and they wanted to do an open audition. So somehow Britney talked her mom into driving her all the way there, all the way back, and auditioning for the Mickey Mouse Club open audition. And she went and she wowed the producers, and so much so that out of thousands of kids, she made it to the final cut. That was like the super group cast of the Mickey Mouse Club. We have Christina Aguilera, we have Justin Timberlake, we have JC from NSYNC, who goes on to be in NSYNC as well. We have Ryan Gosling, who, though he's Canadian, they say he's an all-American kid. So it was this bumper crop of Mickey Mouse kids. So that was, again, she gets to have her moment of fame on that. It was the #1 show during that time slot on the Disney Channel.
Britney and Justin Timberlake, her first very famous love of her life, met actually in the Mickey Mouse Club. They were both child performers, and Justin has a mom very similar to Britney's mom. Lynn, very kind of a pushy, stage-driven mom who Justin is absolutely very close with. They both came from small southern towns, and they had a lot in common in their background, in their skill set, and in their personality, and they were very good friends right from the beginning. You know, Britney and Justin often talked about how they grew up together. They really did. They shared a common background, and they shared a common spotlight, and what that's like, that unique feeling of being a child star. They both understood each other very well right from the beginning.
They were the only two people that really understood what it was like to come up in that world of being a child performer. They literally had parallel lives, from being on Star Search to being on the Mickey Mouse Club. Their mothers were really good friends. So they'd had very, very, very similar experiences, and they connected in that way that was totally unique to anybody else. And then if you think about, as Britney is literally having this international career take off, so was Justin. In fact, Britney opened up for NSYNC. When Baby One More Time started to explode as a single, Jive thought to put her on tour. So she literally was there just as both acts were starting to get this global recognition. And there had been little articles written here and there about how when they were on the Mickey Mouse Club, her and Christina both thought Justin was hot. Or as I think Christina said at one point, that Justin had swagger even back in the Mickey Mouse days. So it's not really surprising that they were drawn to each other and they were attracted to each other. And in Justin, I think Britney was able to be her authentic self. She was actually able to be the girl from Louisiana. She didn't have to be that sexy, over-sexualized person. She could just be her natural personality. And I think he gave her a lot of confidence as well. One of the things that Britney has said before is that when she's on stage, she is one persona, and then when she's off stage, she's, a different person. She's very shy, supposedly. And I think Justin gave her the ability to switch off and just, have that duality in her life.
Well, I feel like, I think this business is really hard to get into. I think you have to know the right people. It's really cutthroat. You have to be very determined and very focused and very disciplined, and know that there's going to be a lot of work ahead of you to, make it in this business. It's a lot of hard work. And, I think once you're cut out for that and you really understand what that means, I think then you can succeed.
And do you think there's ever pressure from sort of people at the top to be really sexy in order to succeed?
Overall, especially in Los Angeles, yeah, I do think that. I think there is a pressure for girls to have the right nose, the right body, the right, and it almost kind of becomes, you are your environment, and it almost becomes contagious when you get in an environment like that. You actually really do become that yourself. But so I think it's just important to keep cool people around you that keep you grounded.
I think when Britney's kind of broke out with Hit Me Baby One More Time, and you saw that very provocative, racy video, it was her kind of walking that line between slutty and sexy. And, she was so young and she looked so innocent, and there was a sweetness to her in interviews that she was really forgiven. But at the same time, she managed to walk that delicate place between going too far and at the same time being sexy. She managed to do it okay at that point, and it was a huge success.
Well, I was hoping and I was, dreaming that I would do really, really well. But when it first, when it debuted, at such high, number on the charts, I was really, really, overwhelmed. I was really excited, so.
her sexuality is used as both a marketing tool and a weapon against Britney. So as soon as she hits with her first record, she starts being grilled about everything, like, have you had breast implants? Have you had sex with anyone? Are you a virgin? Are you still a good Christian? And over and over and over again, like, no matter what she wears, it's either she's not covering up enough, or she's too revealing, or she's being a bad role model for girls. And especially in the Baby One More Time video, that kind of is the beginning catalyst of this. She's being told, oh, you're a Lolita figure, you're setting a bad example for girls. And what's really important to look at is, I think that's the adult viewpoint looking at it. I don't know if a 12 or a 13-year-old girl is going to look at that and go, ooh, that's sexy. I think a kid's probably going to look at that and go, that's powerful. Here's this girl slamming the locker. Here's a girl doing backflips. Looking at it as an adult, you are putting those things onto it. It's not necessarily a kid thinking that. And it's the parents and it's the adults that are making it into something that I think it's not. And yet Britney is the one that's having to pay the price. She's the one that people are constantly putting under the pressure. And it's really, really, really horrifying to look back on that. You have her sitting with talk show hosts that are 50, 60 years old asking about her breasts. She's 19 years old. You have her at a press conference in front of hundreds of reporters asking about her virginity, if she still has it. And you just think about how many male performers at the same exact time, are they asking them about their virginity? Are they asking them if they've had any work done? No, they aren't. And to be fair, they're probably not asking that many other female performers. It's just Britney, all this pressure is on. And you think about her as an example, she is a performer. She is an artist. Why is it that she has to be necessarily a role model for anything? I think in some ways, she's a role model for you can be strong and you can be sexy, which is a good role model for kids in a lot of ways. So it's horribly sad, especially when you watch all these things together and you read it in hindsight. It's terrifying.
Yes, I am a virgin, and I definitely want to try and have sex till I'm married. I just want to wait for that special someone.
That's a formula that consistently seems to do well with men and across the world. So I think what Britney personified is something that resonated with a lot of young guys, and young girls, of course, wanted to look like her. But she was getting away with a lot of provocative stuff because of the fact that she was so publicly innocent and a good girl. So she kind of got away with more than somebody else would have.
Justin, she kisses another man. What are your views on that?
Hey, look, man. No, it's just, it is what it is. It's acting.
Are you gonna feel a pang of jealousy when you're in there?
Well, it doesn't make you feel like $1 million. We'll leave it at that. But, you take it for what it's worth. I mean, it's just acting. She's seen me do it, and I'm sure it doesn't make her feel awesome, so.
It might be quite a turn on, you never know.
I'm not that type of person.
Honestly, I was on my 3rd tour, and I just wanted to try something different to see even if I could do something, try the acting thing. And I was really inspired by the script. I really love what the script was saying, and I love the whole relationship between the girls and the bond that they had. So honestly, I was inspired to do it because still to this day, I still have my best friends, 3 best friends, Courtney, Larlin, and Jansen. And that's one of the things that, I think that's inspiring to have that. And I wanted to do the movie because I could kind of relate to it to a certain extent. There was a bunch of parts that were really hard for me to do because I couldn't relate to the fact that Lucy, her mother, totally abandoned her. And so I really had to just, go inside Lucy and try to envision what she was going through, But I like the fact, though, that it is really very emotional and it does deal with real teen issues. So teenagers can see that and feel, like whatever's going on in their world, they'll be like, they're not alone, Well, honestly, I knew totally going into this that there's always a chance of failure. But, I'm the type of person, I'm willing to take that risk, And I love Crossroads and I love the whole story behind it. And it's something that I want to put my heart into. So I was willing to take that risk.
Well, for Britney and Justin, a lot has been reported, but the most the most plausible of all the rumors is the fact that Britney cheated on Justin Timberlake while they were together. In fact, Justin wrote a song about this. He had a video where it was very obvious what was happening with a Britney lookalike. There were lots of rumors about who Britney had cheated on Justin with, but the most common one was an actual mutual friend of theirs who was Britney's choreographer. That was probably the most likely candidate. All that to say, Justin was obviously devastated and broke up with Britney because of this incident. And Britney's spiral, her downward spiral, really can be traced back to that point.
No clear explanation about their breakup was ever given. But in December of that year, JT released the music video for Cry Me a River. The video features a Britney lookalike, and it rose suspicions that the reason for their breakup was Britney's unfaithfulness.
Don't have to say what you did. I already know. No chance. You and me. Don't it make you sad enough? Go on and just tell me you're ready. Baby, go on and just tell me you're ready. You can go on and just tell me you're ready. Baby, go on and just tell me you're ready. Just tell me you're ready. Oh, baby, cry. Tell me you're ready. Gonna cry no more. Yeah, yeah. Cry me a river. Oh, cry me a river. Oh, cry me a river.
In response to that song, Britney wrote the ballad Every Time, which became one of the big hits of her next album. During the opening of the 2003 MTV VMAs, Britney performed Like a Virgin alongside Madonna and Christina Aguilera. Halfway through the performance, they both kissed Madonna. The incident was highly publicized.
There's no question in my mind whatsoever that Madonna used Britney at the MTV Awards for publicity for herself. You know, Madonna was the one singing, Britney was there to support her, and by kissing her in such a lingering fashion, I think at that point both women were trying to get in the headlines.
In the beginning of 2004, Britney Spears pulled one of her most shocking stunts. While in Las Vegas, Britney and a childhood friend, Jason Allen Alexander, tied the knot in a shotgun wedding at the Little White Wedding Chapel. The wedding made headlines all over the globe, causing a media frenzy like no other. The wedding was annulled within 55 hours, and the news continued for weeks after. But that wasn't the only wedding Britney would see in 2004. Only a few months later, Britney became engaged to one of her own backup dancers, Kevin Federline. The romance received intense attention, and they got married that year. In October that year, Britney announced that she was going to take a break from her career to start a family. After that announcement, a few albums with greatest hits and remixes were released with some success. In 2005, Britney became a mom after giving birth to Sean Preston Federline.
Well, Kevin Federline is like a lot of non-famous, non-successful people who end up with very, very famous rich women. You know, Kevin was Britney's employee. He was a backup dancer who she paid to be on stage with her. You see this happening a lot with very powerful, successful women who like to be in control, Madonna. But, you know, with Kevin Federline, I think for him it was like winning the lottery. You know, all of a sudden his boss, who's a superstar, kind of noticed him, took him to her bed, and all of a sudden he was promoted to boyfriend. So for him, I'm sure it was very heady. He went from flying in economy to flying on the private jet with Britney virtually overnight. What's significant to me about the Kevin and Britney relationship is how fast everything happened. You know, within weeks, she was talking about marriage. Within months, you know, she was proposing to him, saying, let's get married, before, you know, he actually officially proposed to her. There was a desperation about it.
At the start of 2007, Britney Spears is literally the most searched for person on the internet, and arguably the most famous person in the world, probably the biggest celebrity. She is followed everywhere she goes by not one or two, but about a pack of 30 different photographers trying to get an elusive picture of her. It can be anything, her just going to get a coffee. Pictures are selling for $2 million a piece. So literally a picture of Britney Spears can change somebody's life. She has absolutely zero privacy whatsoever. And the pressure of having to support all of these people, not just the photographers, obviously, but the whole enterprise of Britney, is really starting to get to her in so many ways. She's not trusting anyone. She feels like, you know, even her family at this point are not people that she can turn to, friends. She feels like people have just stabbed her in the back, and it just is too much for her in a lot of ways.
Well, for those of us who followed the day-to-day of Britney Spears, it wasn't a total shock that when she had what seemed to be some kind of psychotic break and shaved her head, because we had seen before then a lot of very provocative behavior, very erratic behavior, going into stores in LA, taking off all her clothes outside of the dressing room, walking around naked. There were all these rumors and reports coming back. So when she ultimately did something so crazy, it seemed, I don't think we were entirely shocked, but for a star of Britney's caliber to shave her head in such a way, and then we saw those pictures of her, you know, brandishing like an umbrella, like a weapon, you know, at someone's car. She looks absolutely bonkers in the eyes. Yeah, it was a shock. You didn't expect that. I think a lot of people were worried for Britney's life at that point, because it seemed to be that something was going on psychologically that people weren't really sure she was going to come back from.
So really for anyone at all, but imagine having the eyes of the world on you. The pressure just really begins to mount, and the perfect facade of Britney really starts to be chipped away in huge, very public meltdowns. So you have some of the kind of key ones being when she goes and shaves her head in Los Angeles, and again the paparazzi is there to capture every second of it, when she literally goes into a beauty salon, grabs the clippers and just does her own head. And there's this really haunting images of her literally just staring down into the paparazzi's lens, just these big huge like doleful eyes, and it's just really sad. And she literally says to somebody, "I want nobody to touch me" at this point. She goes from there, she goes and gets a couple tattoos. Not long after that, a paparazzi is following her, and she just is like, please, just leave me alone for a little bit, just go away. They ignore her, of course, and she gets out of the car and starts beating their car with an umbrella. Another instance where she is with her kids, the visiting time is over with, and she takes one of the kids. She does not want to give the kid back, and she grabs him, goes with him into the bathroom, and the police are called, and the whole incident ends with her being hauled away into a 5150, and a 5150 in California is when someone is involuntarily taken away to a psychiatric ward for 72 hours because they are going to be of harm to themselves or somebody else. So there's again all these horrific images of Britney being taken away on a gurney, crying on a stretcher in the back of an ambulance from that. I think one thing that's important is all these things out of context of what else is happening in her life. If you look at these in isolation and splashed across newspapers, it definitely looks like, oh my gosh, Britney has gone crazy. But if you look at them in the larger picture of what's happening, it really is just a woman that is under so much scrutiny and is just having all kinds of horrible things happening in her personal life that I think it makes a lot more sense, and it definitely makes you have a lot more empathy. It's not someone going crazy, it's someone that just has too much stuff happening to her with not enough support around her. And I think that that's one thing that was really forgotten and not looked at the time. It was much more interesting and, dare I say, fun for the public to go, oh, look at, here's someone that made it so big, has so much money, and yet she's going mad, instead of going, here's someone that really could use our help and our support. I think that I think was what was lost when we're looking at these pictures. at the point where Britney has her final breakdown and gets her second 5150 and is taken away to the psychiatric ward, I would say it is fair to say the only person that really seemed to understand what was going on is a little gay teenager named Chris Crocker, who made the Leave Britney Alone video, which he got ridiculed incessantly for, but he literally is probably the only person that seemed to get what was happening with Britney, what was happening with her losing her kids, what was happening with her losing her privacy. He was the only person that really seemed cognitive of the seriousness of the situation.
Her song is called Give Me More for a reason, because all you people want is more, 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 more. Leave her alone.
At that point, her parents, who had been concerned but really unable to do very much, it seemed, went to the courts and demanded and asked for the fact that they could kind of care for her. And the court at that time decided that, in fact, Britney's father could be her conservator, which is something that you would do to a child or to someone who's not able to manage their own affairs personally or in terms of the money that she had. And the courts doing that would only have been done if it was a very serious situation.
After the mega success of her early child star career, she was catapulted into the spotlight, into a life of fame and fortune. But with fame comes pressure and scrutiny. The hounding paparazzi and a series of turbulent events in her personal life led to her now infamous mental health breakdown of the late 2000s. But despite rehab, support, and a revitalized career, Britney's fortune and freedom is almost entirely out of her hands due to a strict conservatorship upheld by the courts and controlled by her father.
So a conservatorship is when a third party, usually a family member or it could be a lawyer, takes control of either someone's estate or someone's personal effects and their day-to-day living. Sometimes it's those two things combined. So at the very beginning of the conservatorship, there's always a leaked call from somewhere, okay? So there was a leaked call of Britney speaking to her lawyer, talking about the conservatorship, and she was saying how she just wanted to be able to drive her car and do certain freedoms, and the conservatorship was not allowing her to do that. And this got to the ears of a guy named Jordan Miller. Jordan Miller had a website called Breathe Heavy, which was a Britney Spears fan appreciation site. And he saw this, and something about the conservatorship, even though it was very early days in it was 2008-ish, did not sit right with him at all. He was just kind of like, that does not sound cool, something does not seem right about this. And he was the first person to actually don the phrase, Free Britney. And that's really the very, very beginning of this. And so the first years of the Britney Spears conservatorship, everybody was just like, look how great Britney's doing. She's putting out these records, and then she gets the Vegas residency. So Britney is this massive brand. She's doing all this stuff while she's in the conservatorship. So people are just like, this conservatorship has been brilliant for Britney. But there's a small part of the Britney fan base that is just like, some things are just don't seem right about it. And Jordan was part of that. And I think these things really started coming to a head, though, when she canceled the Domination tour. And that was going to be the second residency that she was supposed to do in Vegas.
I'm doing rehearsals every day from like 1 to 5, and then when I hang out, I watch great movies. I eat tons of popcorn with Parmesan cheese, and I love going to the spa at the Four Seasons. There is a God there. Yeah.
Can you give us normal girls some tips on being so like wonderfully sexy and gorgeous?
Oh, well, thank you. You're so sweet. I would say just do a lot of yoga. I'm really disciplined with, and I like kickboxing. It's fun. I like to punch. So.
And when you're hitting the bag, is there anyone's face you've got in mind?
Oh, a couple of people. Yeah.
That helps the motivation.
Yes.
when Britney canceled the 2019 Domination Vegas residency, she said it was because her father was in poor health and she just wanted time to spend with the family. And then she pretty quickly checked herself into a mental health facility just to get some time off and to kind of recuperate and rejuvenate from spending all this time performing. And all these things were kind of like, a lot of the fan base was just like, that's kind of strange. And there was a particular podcast called Britney Graham, where two LA-based comedians, they would literally look at her Instagram and evaluate, like, what does it mean she's wearing a yellow shirt? What does it mean she's blinking her eyes? And somebody phoned in to the Britney Graham, an anonymous call, saying that he was part of Britney's legal team and saying that she was checked into the mental institute against her will, that she was being medicated against her will. He made all these crazy allegations. He wouldn't say who he was. He couldn't identify himself. But this was a major thing. And so there was an emergency podcast by the Britney Graham girls, and that spurred them into action. And that was really the very, very first time that people were outside the courthouse when there was a trial about Britney's conservatorship, and that's when the activism really kicked in.
What do we want? Free Britney! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Free Britney! When do we want it? Now! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! The conservatorship has got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! The conservatorship has got to go!
So I believe the conservatorship is an egregious limitation of Britney's civil liberties. I think it's a human rights issue. I do feel that strongly. It is true that we don't know everything about her private medical history, and we don't need to make the assessment that conservatorship is inappropriate. I think misogyny plays a big role imposing our idea of how a woman should behave. She needed support. She didn't need basically to be punished.
What a conservatorship is supposed to do is protect her, any conservatee, from someone taking advantage of them. She has shown that she is able to provide for her most basic needs and her day-to-day life. She does not need these stringent controls over her.
I've been working on my book, Being Britney, Pieces of a Modern Icon, and it's been during this time where the Free Britney movement's been picking up lots and lots of momentum, and it's been really, really interesting to see. You have celebrities like Cher and Miley Cyrus and Paris Hilton really getting behind it. And it really is, it's not just about Britney Spears, but it's about women being controlled. And you have to think, if these civil liberties and rights of Britney Spears are being controlled and taken away in this way, what about people that don't have all the power and money and status? If someone like Britney can have this happen to her, what about the rest of us? And it really became quite a women's issue when we heard that her right to control her own body, with birth control specifically, was something that had been taken away from her. When that came out, my phone the next day was just blowing up. And I thought there'd be other things that people were gonna ask me about, but that was the one thing that people were just like, oh my gosh, what do you think about the birth control thing? And I wasn't really surprised, but the word Handmaid's Tale, that was like bandied around a lot. Like, now her ability to have kids is being controlled as well. And if something like that can happen to Britney, it can happen to any of us. I think we like to think that the law is going to protect us and the right thing is going to happen. And if we get into a circumstance, the framework in place is going to protect us. And what Britney shows is that, no, that's not true. So the fact that she was able to use her voice and other people are coming out to use their voices to help her and for her is very, very important. And I think it feels good to see that other people are picking up the gauntlet and trying to make a change.
Has got to go. Hey, hey. Ho, ho. The conservatorship has got to go. Hey, hey. Ho, ho.
The system is broken because there is no place to go to complain. There is no place to vent. There's no place to go to say my constitutional rights were violated.
I think it can be used to protect people appropriately. Clearly, something is wrong. I've lost many hours of sleep wondering how this could have happened in the United States.
What do we want? Free Britney! When do we want it?
I believe that this conservatorship has been fraudulent since day one, And I'm here to stand up for what's right, and that is to release Britney from this conservatorship, and beyond that, to help reform some of these laws that are trapping other conservatees in similar abusive situations.
So today in court, we heard that Britney Spears wants to address the court, wants to talk to the judge. That is amazing because for so long, even after this movement started, so many people are speaking for Britney Spears, but we never heard directly from her. You know, one of the things that we've been raising awareness about is that her court-appointed attorney, who she didn't choose, has been submitting statements to the court on her behalf, but we never heard from her directly. So finally, we're going to hear from her, and hopefully justice will be served.
It was hard to hear her, in her own words, explain the way they've treated her. You know, some of the worst abuses that we were afraid of, you know, just being forced to work and being threatened that she can't see her children or her boyfriend if she doesn't do what they say, and locking her up against her will, and all of those things, you know. We knew that was true, but to hear Britney say it herself, it wasn't easy.
Well, I don't think it's the beginning of the end, but I certainly think it's the end of Jamie Spears as far as his role goes in this conservatorship. It's pretty clear that she has expressed that he is doing more harm than good, and we know that we don't need him anymore because we have professionals involved who are dealing with her day in, day out.
It's been, you know, more than a decade at this point that she's been in a conservatorship, and I think she thinks, and her attorney thinks, that it's time for the court to review it, and the court will take a look at that.
So on June 23rd, 2021, Britney was able to give a statement in court. So when she did give this testimony, it was a really, really crucial moment because it allowed us to look in and see what she was thinking. And again, in this whole context of ideas that are coming from sources and someone close to the Spears family, we actually hear Britney's voice for the first time. And one thing that she said that is really, I think, the most telling is she says that this whole time she's been in the conservatorship, when asked how she is, she says, "I'm okay and I'm happy." And she confides, "It's a lie." So all these years when she's been putting on this facade of smiley, happy, shiny, everything's going great Britney, it's all been untrue. She's been miserable. She says that she cries literally every single day. And then she goes into this laundry list of things that she's not allowed to do. Probably the most shocking and disturbing for a lot of people is that she wants to get married. She's not allowed to get married. And that she has an IUD, which is a birth control device that is inside your uterus, and she's not allowed to take it out and get pregnant and have a kid, which she desperately wants to do. What started as Jamie Spears being the head of the conservatorship has turned into a bit of a tumultuous mess because you have management coming in, thinking it may not be the best situation for them, lawyers, you have huge investment groups, and I think a lot of people are having second thoughts about if they even want to be involved with the conservatorship of Britney Spears because of all of the public scrutiny, because of the Free Britney movement. And Jamie Spears has publicly said on numerous occasions he thinks the Free Britney movement is ridiculous. They don't know what's going on inside the family. But I think especially after Britney's public statement that some of the real stakeholders that have been involved or were thinking about being involved or may have considered getting involved may think that it's not the place for them. So things are up in the air, and it's a movable feast of who's going to be involved in it moving forward.
I think a sexiness is about knowing who you are and like coming into yourself and knowing what you want and knowing just knowing everything about yourself. And I think by 30 years old, you kind of have to know who you are. So I think that it comes with age, definitely. And yeah, I think you take your experiences that you go through and definitely put it into your work. So I'm going to have a lot of I hate men songs and then a lot of I love men songs. So it kind of goes both ways.
And now you've come so far in your career and you've done so well. If we could put you in a showbiz time machine, you could go back and give your 17-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Rock on.
The seemingly unending conservatorship gave rise to the hashtag Free Britney movement. The aim of the movement is to bring public attention to Britney's lost freedom and help her break free from the shackles of what many believe to be a human rights crime of a conservatorship. Now in legal limbo and awaiting the next effort to reinstate her own freedom, we can look back at the illustrious and complicated life and career of the Princess of Pop in a hope to better understand how things led up to this. The eternal all-American girl, she was one of the top breakout stars in the 90s. Her rise to stardom was of epic proportions. With the mega hit albums Hit Me Baby One More Time and Oops, I Did It Again, she established herself as pop royalty. For years, she fed the scandal-hungry media, and her very loyal fans watched as the Princess of Pop went into meltdown.
I would say that it's very difficult to see what is truly and who is Britney Spears. The idea of Britney Spears being authentic is an interesting thing to unpick and try to get to the bottom of, because in many ways, I think Britney Spears is this myriad and pastiche of ideas that other people have either projected onto her. And when I say other people, be that fans or be that marketing or be that PR machine, and things we want her to be. So who Britney Spears actually is, I don't even know if that person exists truly, because I don't know if she even knows who she is, or she's been given the opportunity to find out who Britney Spears is. And I think that's an important thing that we need to think about.
But despite all of her struggles and very public pitfalls, she fought her way back into superstardom. She is Britney Jean Spears.
Music will always be my heart and my soul, because that's me. That's what I've always done since I was a little girl. You know, for me, it was just really about, you know, making sure that girls out there, the general public, you knew that if they do have those issues, that as long as you have your girlfriend you can go to and talk to about it, that's what matters, you know? And it's about friendship, so.
Britney Spears, once the untouchable Princess of Pop, has found herself at the heart of a battle for her own freedom.